wedged in the fork of a broken box elder limb. When the ankle had twisted, the searing pain must have made him unconscious. Papa worked Grandpa's foot free and turned him over. I sat down and placed his head on my lap. While Papa and the judge massaged his arms and legs, I wiped the frozen sleep from his eyes and face. Burying my face in the iron gray hair, I cried and begged God not to let my grandfather die. I think he's gone, the judge said. I don't think so, Papa said. He took a bad fall when that limb tripped him, but he hasn't been lying there long enough to be frozen. I think he's just unconscious. Papa lifted him to a sitting position and told the judge to start slapping his face. Grandpa moaned and moved his head. He's coming around, Papa said. I asked Papa if we could get him back to the gully where old Dan was. I had noticed there was a very little wind there and we could build a fire. That's the very place, he said. We'll build a good fire and one of us can go for help. Papa and the judge made a seat by catching each other's wrists. They eased Grandpa between them. By the time we reached the washout, Grandpa was fully conscious again and was mumbling and grumbling. He couldn't see why they had to carry him like a baby. After easing him over the bank and down into the gully, we built a large fire. Papa took his knife and cut the boot from Papa's swollen foot. Grandpa grunted and groaned from the pain, but I felt sorry for him, but there was nothing I could do but look on. Papa examined the foot. Shaking his head, he said, Boy, that's a bad one. It's either broken or badly sprained. I'll go for some help. Grandpa said, Now wait just a minute. I'm not going to let you go out in that blizzard by yourself. What if something happens to you? No one would know. What time is it? He asked. The judge looked at his watch. It's almost 5 o'clock, he said. It's not long till daylight, Grandpa said. Then if you want to go, you can see where you're going. Now help me get propped up against this bank. I'll be all right. It doesn't hurt anymore. It's numb now. He's right, the judge said. Think you can stand it, Papa asked. Grandpa roared like a bear. Sure I can stand it. It's nothing but a sprained ankle. I'm not going to die. Build that fire up a little more. While Papa and the judge made Grandpa comfortable, I carried wood for the fire. There's no use standing around gawking at me, Grandpa said. I'm all right. Get that coon out of that tree. That's what we came for, isn't it? Up until then, the coon hunting had practically been forgotten. The tree was about 30 feet from our fire. We walked over and took a good look at it for the first time. My dogs, seeing we were finally going to pay some attention to them, started bawling and running around the tree. Papa said, It's not much of a tree, just an old box elder snag. There's not a limb on it. I couldn't see any coons, so the judge, it must be hollow. Papa beat on its side with the axe. It gave forth a loud booming sound. He said, It's hollow, all right. He stepped back a few steps, scraped his feet on the slick ground for a good footing, and said, Stand back and hold those hounds. I'm going to cut it down. We need some wood for our fire anyway. Squatting down between my dogs, I held on to their collars. Papa noticed the old snag so it would fall away from our fire. As the heavy axe chewed its way into the tree, it began to lean and crack. Papa stopped chopping. He said to the judge, Come on and help me. I think we can push it over now. After much grunting and pushing, snapping and popping, it fell. I turned my dogs loose. On hitting the ground, the snag split and broke up. Goggle-eyed, I stood rooted in my tracks and watched 3 big coons roll out of the busted old trunk. One started up the washout, running between us and the fire. Old Dan caught him and the fight was on. The second coon headed down the washout. Little Ann caught him. Hearing a yell from Grandpa, I looked that way. Old Dan and the coon were fighting close to his feet. He was yelling and beating at them with his hat. The judge and Papa ran to help. The third coon started climbing up the steep bank close to me. Just before reaching the top, his claws slipped in the icy mud. Tumbling over and down he came. I grabbed up a stick and threw it at him. Showing and growling his teeth, he started for me. I threw a fight to him then and there. Some 10 yards away I looked back. He was climbing the bank. That time he made it and disappeared in the thick cane. Hearing a squall of pain from Little Ann, I turned. The coon was really working her over. He had climbed up on her back and was tearing and slashing. She couldn't shake him off. Grabbing a club from the ground, I ran to help her. Before we had killed our coon, old Dan came tearing in. We stood and watched the fight. When the coon was dead, Appa picked it up and we walked back to the fire. "How many coons was there in that old snag?" Papa asked. "I saw 3, I said. The one that got away climbed out over there." I pointed in the direction the coon had taken. I never should have pointed. My dogs turned as one and started bawling and clawing their way up the steep bank. I shouted and scolded, but to no avail. They disappeared in the rattling cane. We stood still, listening to their voices. The sound died away in the roaring storm. Sitting down close to the fire, I buried my face in my arms and cried. I heard the judge say to my father, "This beats anything I've ever seen. Why, those dogs can read that boy's mind. He just pointed at that bank and away they went. I never saw anything like it. I can't understand some of the things they have done tonight. Hounds usually aren't that smart. If they were collies or some other breed of dog, it would be different, but they're just red-bone hounds. Hunting dogs." Papa said, "Yes, I know what you mean. I've seen them do things that I couldn't understand. I've never heard of hounds that ever had any affection for anyone. But these dogs are different. Did you ever know they won't hunt with anyone but him? Not even me?" Hearing my grandfather call my name, I went over and sat down by his side. Putting his arm around me, he said, "Now I wouldn't worry about those dogs. They'll be all right. It's not long till daylight. Then you can go to them." I said, "Yes, but what if the coon crosses the river? My dogs will follow him. If they get wet, they could freeze to death." "We'll just have to wait and hope for the best," he said. "Now straighten up and quit that sniffling. I'm like a coon hunter. You don't see me bawling, and this old foot is paining me something awful." I felt better after my talk with Grandpa. "Come on, let's skin these coons," Papa said. I got up to help him. After the skins were peeled from the carcasses, I had an idea. Holding one up close to the fire until it was warm, I took it over and wrapped it around Grandpa's foot. Chuckling, he said, "Boy, that feels good. Heat another skin the same way." I kept it up for the rest of the night. To be continued.